Hi, my name is Akil Patel, and I'm a junior chemical engineering student at the University of Houston. Today, I'll be doing a presentation on the Code of Ethics and also be providing a relevant example to give you a better idea of the topic. So before I move along, I'd like to talk a little bit about the NSPE, which is known as the National Society of Professional Engineers. It was founded in 1934 by a small group of engineers from multiple disciplines. And the whole goal is to basically protect the public as well as protect practicing engineers from malpractice. And the way they do that is they decided to make this unified set code of conduct which all engineers are expected to follow to hold this dignity and hold the safety of the public at the forefront. So here's a code of ethics. And these code of ethics are basically a set code that the NSPE expects all engineers to follow and should. And these codes are broken up into 5 sections with multiple subsections to detail each code and also describe what to do and what not to do to prevent any violations of the code. So the code that I'll specifically be talking about is code 3.3, which states, engineers shall avoid all conduct or practice that deceives the public. As an engineer, you should focus on maintaining the utmost respect for the public and making sure they get the right information when needed. Because giving them false information and straying them off the path can lead to much more problems down the road and especially ruin the reputation and dignity of engineers as a whole and as a society. So consider this scenario, which I made up myself. There's 3 different engineers. Call them Engineer X, Engineer Y, and Engineer Z. Engineer Z is the founder of this company called ZNG. And basically he's looking to hire new engineers. So Engineers X and Engineer Y decide to come along and they get hired on the onboarding process. And Engineer Z at the same time steps down into a lesser role so he can take some time off. After a few weeks and months go by, Engineer X and Y get to learn more about the company and understand what they do and their projects in the past. So they decide to bring light to a project that was done by Engineer Z exclusively and his small company back 10 years ago. And they look to talk more about it and shed more light on it. And their whole goal, however, is to show that they also took a part in that project. They also had a role in that project. And the issue with that is they took the roles of the actual workers in the project and put themselves in their places. So the public thought that they were the ones that were actually doing the work when actually it was other people. And by doing this, they also did not acknowledge Engineer Z, nor did they acknowledge the company. And they did this all just to gain reputation and gain fame. So analyzing the situation, Code 3.3a states, engineers shall avoid the use of statements containing a material misrepresentation of fact or omitting a missing fact. And as they did, they omitted the fact that Engineer Z had a role in the project, as well as omitted the fact that his company was at the forefront of this project, which many of the public may not know since it was 10 years ago and it was such a long time. They should be responsible for mentioning that. That should be the first thing that they should actually mention. They also misrepresented ownership, what I just said, of the project and made it seem as if they were the ones that were leading it. They're the ones who had the biggest roles and also the ones that are gaining reputation along with that. And lastly, they're falsifying their participation in creation because from the start they were never even a part of this project. So they're basically creating a false reputation and going about it as if they were the main people in that project. And other relevant codes that I also thought were important in this and similar to code 3.3a were codes 1.5, 2.5a, as well as 3.9. So whose fault is it overall? As mentioned earlier, Engineer X and Y are definitely at fault and there is no going back from that. As I said, they violated code 3.3 and other subsections, as I said before, with the relevant codes. They falsified information that tarnishes the engineer Z and his company as well. And also, this can be harmful to the public as they won't know the truth of the project and who actually came about the ideas. And lastly, the deceptive act takes away from the actual workers, and honestly, it tarnishes the whole reputation of engineers as a whole. Because doing so, if bringing down one engineer is basically bringing down all of them, and if one does it, it's going downhill, and that's what they're doing right here. So consequences. Engineers who violate the code will have repercussions and be personally and legally responsible for what they've done. So the three main things that possibly could happen are they lose their job / license, they are subject to fines ranging from how dangerous it was to the public, and third, if harming public safety was a matter and it was to a high degree, they may even be facing jail time. So usually in these cases, I would say, is that they would most likely lose their job and possibly even face a fine if there was some public endangerment in this process. And so finally, considering everything that I've said so far, engineer X and Y are definitely responsible for the violation of code 3.3a, as well as their omission of key facts regarding the owner of company Z and its involvement in the project. This is something that they should be mentioning from the start, and as an engineer as a whole, they should be upholding the code of conduct that the National Society of Professional Engineers has put in place for us. And this is something that all engineers should be following, and no one should be taking lightly, because this is the one unified code that keeps us all in this space of maintaining dignity and respect for and discipline of engineering. And these are my citations for the project. Thank you.